16 years. And I made really good money with them because networking is about connecting. And I built really good relationships with these people because I found out that one of the things I was good at was recruiting. And I did really well in that space. Now, I still had a couple of issues. And one of the issues was that, yeah, I had cut the bad language down, so that was okay. But I'd grown up in a drinking culture from a very young age. And unfortunately, when you mix networking and drinking, all sorts of bad things can happen. So, again, I basically had to, I'll just grab the little finger here. I basically had to look at the way I was doing things, and unfortunately for me, I made a lot of mistakes. So I'll call that the ugly. Now this is the good, the bad, and the ugly in networking. We're going to start with the ugly first, okay? We'll get that out of the way. And the first thing is, that's a picture of me 3 weeks after my first heart attack. That looked fantastic. Just out of hospital, I got a flight to the States the next few days, and I'm a bit concerned. One of my employees, thankfully, is coming with me, because if she didn't, what I was worried about is how the hell I'm going to get back if I have a heart attack over there and die. So we had just seen that weekend at Bernie's, you know, with the dead guy. I said, oh, just do that, get me on the plane, she'll be right. You know, we had that all worked out, so it wasn't an issue. But what I found was, I used to network morning, lunchtimes, evenings, plus work 10 to 14 hours a day. So I was really good at it, I loved it, I had a good time, but the problem is, it was no good for my health. The problem is, it wasn't good for my family either, because they barely ever saw me. So things sort of had to start changing in relation to health. The other mistake I made, unfortunately, and I don't know why it didn't happen sooner, is I ended up getting a DUI. So I've been coming back from a function, and I was a little bit over the limit, thankfully not too much. Thankfully I didn't kill anybody. But I was so ashamed of myself, and I really started to go, what the hell is going on? I've really got to sort of shape up a bit. And I'm talking to all these other business owners, and they're going, Steve, that's all right, mate. You learn from your experience. See how there's 50 people in this room? Every one of them's had a DUI. So they were doing the same sort of silly bloody things that I was doing. And what I didn't realise was that most of those business owners in the room had also been suffering from things like anxiety and depression. But nobody ever talked about it. So I started talking about it. And then the last thing, and I just still can't believe I did this, it was an interesting conference. I'd cleaned up my act. I was barely ever getting drunk when I went to networking functions. But I've been working my butt off. I've been really successful leading up to that period of time. And I thought, you know what, I've been working hard, I deserve it. So I got stuck into the booze, and I caught up with some mates that I hadn't seen interstate and everything else. And there was a young lady there that I was sort of mucking around with and flirting and everything else. Anyway, I'd said a few choice words to her that, again, I'm quite embarrassed, I'm not going to repeat them. But she got really upset. And I would not intentionally ever upset anybody. But she went back and she complained to her manager. It went through to HR. There were some political issues around me with that company anyway. But they were one of my clients that spent $100K a year with me. I lost that account purely through my own stupidity. However, in saying that, I'm very grateful that young lady did that, because it really cleaned up my act. And I started behaving myself and doing the right things when I was out and about, representing my own company. It's bad enough when you're representing somebody else's company, and we're going to talk about the bad in a moment. Anybody been there? All right? Okay. When you're representing somebody else's company, you don't want to be looking like that, especially these days, because everybody's got cameras. Okay? When you're running your own company, you're a leader, right? You're a role model in your community. And you don't want to be ending up like this on the front page of the local paper or through social media. Okay? Not anymore. So, what I wanted to talk about was a couple of things, and the first one that comes to mind is I started behaving myself. I really did. And I thought, who has trouble remembering people's names once they meet them? I am an absolute shocker. So the first thing that I thought of was, somebody taught me this and said, you know what, Steve, when you meet somebody, you then put an object next to their name. So, hi, this is John. He looks like Pumpkinhead. Okay, John Pumpkinhead. And make sure you don't get those mixed up, because that can cause some problems. Okay? And that worked really well. And I'm going, right, next function I go to, whoever I get introduced to, I am going to remember their name. So anyway, young lady comes in and I meet her, and her name's Jane, and she's a business owner, and I'm thinking, oh, this is really good. That's great. I remember her name, Jane. And then a couple other guys come over, oh, Steve, how you going? And I'm going, I'm going to introduce Jane to these guys, and then for whatever reason, Jane's name went out of my head. I have no idea why. Why can I not remember that? So Jane's standing here, and I'm standing here, and the two guys are approaching, and I'm thinking, tell you what, she's got a name badge on. I just look at the name badge. So I'm kind of looking like this, and I realise that my glasses are not my usual sight glasses, and I can't see like this close up with them. I can see you guys, but I couldn't see it. Anyway, unfortunately, Jane's name tag was in a very inappropriate place about here, and she was quite an endowed young lady, and she's going, what is this old bloke doing? And I'm kind of looking at the name, because all I'm focused on, I've got to get this bloody name right. And finally I saw it. Oh, by the way, events organisers, when you put name badges on, can you make sure that they're large, the first name's in large letters, so that blind people like me can goddamn see them, because it is really embarrassing. So anyway, I finally saw it, introduced them, and that was all good. And then she's still looking at me quite oddly, and I'm thinking, oh, this is really awkward. So I thought, I'll tell you what. I rang her up and I said, oh, look, I'm really sorry about this. This is what happened. And I explained to her, and she just burst out laughing. So I ended up getting a coffee meeting with her and doing some business with her. But you do need to be careful of things like that. And then Penny. Penny was an HR graduate, very lovely young lady, and she heard that I placed HR graduates or HR personnel, and she knew I was at an RE function, so she went along. She showed a bit of initiative. She's a really bright, sparkly young lady. And anyway, she asked the events organizer, she said, oh, Steve Semmens here. Yeah, he's in the corner. He's talking to somebody, and of course I'm there talking to people. And as this young lady's approaching, I saw her out of the corner of my eye, and we're in a sort of group there, and I thought, oh, we'll just sort of open up so this young lady can come in and talk to us. And as she sort of got to this right here, she tripped, which in itself was not that good. But the other thing was she had a rather large glass of red wine, and as she tripped, she managed to stay upright, good thing. And the wine came out of the glass. She held onto the glass. The wine came out of the glass and landed all over my crisp white shirt. The look on her face, absolutely priceless. I just started laughing. Couldn't help it. However, that was many years ago, and I still remember Penny. I tried to place her a few times. Great young lady. Now, tonight I was going to wear my red wine protective shirt, which is very similar to this, but it's red. Unfortunately, it's in the wash. So, please, white wine tonight, okay? I'll come up and talk to you later. And then the last thing I want to talk about was being behaviour, and you're representing somebody else's company. Be sure that you don't cause too much of a ruckus. And the reason I'll say that, it can be very career limiting. So I had a gentleman who was a sales rep. He was one of the best in the industry. And unfortunately, we're at the Industry Business Awards, and he lets fly at his boss. Like, gives him a total spray in front of 300 people. Like, I mean, it was mean. Okay? Now, his boss is a nice person. Everybody knows him in the industry. Okay? And there's a lot behind the story. The guy was under a bit of pressure. He just gone through divorce, lost custody of his kids. And he's not normally like that. Anyway, the boss came and talked to me and said, Steve, I think it's time for him to kind of move on. Nothing to do with that incident, but he wants to try something else. I said, yeah, we're going to try and get him a job. I could not place him in that industry. They did not want him. Okay? So I placed him in another industry, and he was fine after that. His boss was a referee for him, so there was no hard feelings there. But you need to be really, really careful of what you're doing. Okay, the good. I really love networking, and the reason is because it's all about connecting with people. If you connect with somebody in business, then they either like you or dislike you, and straight away they're going to go, you know what, I like this guy, I'm going to do business with him, or no, I don't like him, I'm not going to do business with him, and that's fine too. Okay? But people can make that decision. It's instant. I don't have to worry about when I advertise that how many people are going to come into my organisation or anything like that to do business with me. whether I'm going to get on with them, whether they're ideal clients or anything like that, because I can work it out when I'm networking. So this is my definition: connecting with similar thinking people who value what you do, believe in abundance, and seek win-win situations consistently. These people will become advocates, suppliers, customers, and mostly important friends. So 98% of my business is generated through word of mouth or networking activities. Now, I forgot something, my off list. My friends, first thing, who's Wallaby supporters in here? Good to see. Right, I was at a function, 300 people at it. It was at the Tattersalls Club. We had Robbie Deans come and talk to us as a coach, and we get a Q&A, and I love Q&As. So there is 298 Wallaby supporters in that room and 2 Kiwis. Right? My question was to Robbie Deans, how many more New Zealanders are you going to get into the Wallabies team before you start beating the All Blacks? It was chaotic. They went